start by asking a question. How many of you remember asking a lot of questions growing up? Raise of hands, please. Yeah? Thank you. We'd ask questions about everything, right? From why the sky is blue, to why birds fly, to why adults go to work. We didn't care whether these questions sounded stupid, but we just wanted to learn. But think about this. Somewhere along the line, we stopped asking as many questions. Somewhere between report cards and marks, that curiosity in us shrank. So let me ask you another question. How many of you have ever felt like you weren't smart enough or good enough in school? Can I have a raise of hands? Yeah? Not because you couldn't think, but probably because a teacher told you so, or because you scored low marks on an exam, or because you were compared to an academically better child. Because sometimes we reduce intelligence to a number on a piece of paper. Yeah? Albert Einstein once said that everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. Let that sink in for a minute. Unfortunately today, too many children live in that reality. They believe that they are stupid, they believe that they are incapable. Millions of students feel like failures just because the system might not accommodate to their unique needs. We judge intelligence and we brand someone as capable or incapable based on a 2-hour exam that they write. But what most people don't know is that this wasn't by default. It was actually designed to be this way. So since we're talking about academics, is it okay if we do a little history lesson? Yes? Okay, awesome. So in 1903, there was a man named John D. Rockefeller. He was one of the richest men in the world at that point, thanks to the oil industry. And he did something. He decided to fund the General Education Board. Okay? So far so good, right? But here's a quote that was infamously associated with him. And I quote, "I don't need a nation of thinkers, I need a nation of workers." Let that sink in. I don't need a nation of thinkers, I need a nation of workers. And so the General Education Board set out to do its job. It was needed at that point. And their main objective was to create factory workers. People who would obey authority, follow rules, and memorize things and not think, so that they could be the perfect factory workers. And they did this by simulating a factory environment completely. You sit straight, in straight rows, you raise your hand if you need to talk, and 8 hours of being told what to think. Now, here's the thing. Years have passed, more than a century in fact, yet the system remains the same. We've had advancements in almost every field, yet how classrooms looked, say 100 years ago, is exactly how it looks like today. And while this system could have worked many years ago, and it was probably the need of the hour at that time during the Industrial Revolution, times have changed. What we need are not factory workers anymore. What we need are thinkers, innovators, creators, problem solvers, not mass-produced graduates. Now, here is another thing. Isn't it time that we start teaching kids how to think instead of what to think? You know, if you ask any doctor, they would tell you that no two brains are the same. You ask any parent with 2 or more children, and they would tell you that no two children are the same. I'm sure people in the audience, if you have siblings, then you would also agree to the fact that you are nothing like your sibling. So why do we think it's okay to shove 30 completely different human beings into the same classroom and teach them the same thing in the same pace at the same manner? one method for 30 kids with completely different strengths, struggles, and most importantly, completely different dreams and desires in life. Is that an education system or is it a cookie cutter system? Now, here are some harsh realities that we should be thinking about. The first thing being, with the fast-paced world that we're living in right now, with things changing, with AI coming in, like Sir said, how smart is it to stick to rote learning and memorizing things? How sustainable is that? When a lot of things are one AI prompt away. The second thing being, we live in a world where are we really being taught real life skills? And what about the artistic and athletic capabilities of students? When did we decide that arts wasn't as important as mathematics? And why we can say that, a couple of years ago, there weren't as many career opportunities in these fields. Things are changing rapidly. I was talking to a student 2 days ago, and she said that when she was in school, she went to school for 12 hours, and she never had a PT period in between because they were studying for a JEE exam. And last but not the least, kids today, they're being born into the technological era. And studies have shown that kids these days have shortened attention spans. So is the education system really accounting for shortened attention spans, the different learning styles that kids have, and the individual pace at which children grow? The reason I speak about this with so much passion is because I've grown up feeling like a misfit. I come from a family of doctors. Everyone from my grandparents to my parents to my aunt, uncle, you name it, they're doctors. But here I was, hating science as a subject. And I couldn't connect to rote learning as a method of learning. And I always had this one question in my mind. Why am I learning this? And another question in my mind, where am I going to lose this? And so I went to 7 different schools. I've been a part of almost every board you can imagine. I used to remember dreading going to parent-teacher meetings because I wouldn't get good marks. I remember feeling like an absolute failure. I remember feeling like I wasn't disciplined enough. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't meant or cut out for success. I remember this one incident like it happened yesterday. It was my 6th grade final parent-teacher meeting. And I remember going to the parent-teacher meeting with my mother. And we sat, across my class teacher, and she has one look at me, and she has the most disgusted look on her face. She picks up my report card from the, pile of report cards, and she almost flings it over to my mom. And she says, your daughter's failed almost all her subjects. She doesn't deserve to be a part of this prestigious school. And in that moment, if I'm being very honest with you, I didn't feel a single thing. I was so used to teachers telling me this day in and day out. But when I turned over and looked at my mom sitting in that 6th grade classroom, she had tears flowing down her face. And that broke me. We think that marks are just marks, but for children, for me, for India as a whole, we are taught that our academic success is equal to our self-worth. If you're a good student, you're a good child and you'll do well in life. But if you're a bad student, you're a bad child, and what will happen of you? It's your one job to do, right? To study, and you can't even do that properly. But what I learned was that I wasn't incapable of learning. I just learned differently. I learned better when I made the world my classroom, when I traveled, when I met real life mentors who guided me and inspired me. I learned better when I found teachers along the way that believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. And that same girl that was once branded incapable by that teacher went on to doing well in her board exams, to training 10,000 students, to writing a best-selling book, and to starting a company to help kids go through exactly what she once went through. Now, the biggest thing that drove me was this, that there are millions of students out there sitting in classrooms right now feeling like I once felt, feeling like they are good enough. But the truth is that they're more than good enough, but they're being judged by their ability to climb the tree, like Albert Einstein said. Now, this is not to say that education is bad or people should drop out of school and college, not at all. In fact, I think that education is extremely important, and it is, that foundational block that we have in life. But the truth is that while the system works for so many people, it leaves others feeling confused and unsure about what to do. And I don't think that is right. So what do? We can take inspiration from systems that have worked. And we look at implementing and changing the education system to make it better and to accommodate the needs of every student. Let's take Finland, for example. Finland is known as the happiest country in the world. But they're also known to have fewer exams, shorter school days, and more frequent breaks. But somehow they consistently rank as one of the best academically in the world. This is not because students are studying harder, but it's because students have learned the art of studying smarter. But we don't even have to go that far. If we take a look at our own history, then you'll see that back in the Vedic period, India had something called the Gurukula system, and it offers profound wisdom. You see, students were called Shishyas and teachers were called Gurus. This thing would happen in a residential setting, usually in an ashram or in a forest somewhere, and kids would learn more than just academics. They would learn life. The first thing is, it was relationship based. Each guru knew each shishya intimately. They knew their strengths, their struggles, their soul. Education wasn't something that was transactional, but it was something that was transformational, and it changed the lives of every student that walked through. Second, it was truly holistic. Kids didn't just learn scriptures and mathematics, they went beyond. They learned ethics, philosophy, public speaking, and so much more, things that could really prepare them for the real world. Philosophy, you name it. The third thing is that it was super personalized because each guru knew that students grew differently, like how a tree grows differently. And so there was no one-size-fits-all approach that was used. Each child was treated differently for the path that they were on. And last but not the least, there were two things that was practiced on a day-to-day basis. The first thing was dharma, which is duty, and the second thing was seva bhav, which was service with love. Because even back then, they knew that intelligence without compassion was useless and it could even be dangerous. So they made humility a way of being. So what can we do now? We bring these principles back. We start by personalizing education, and we use technology not as a way to replace teachers, but to empower them to understand students better, to understand the pace, the different learning abilities that students have. We start by teaching real life skills, communication, public speaking, financial literacy, things that kids will continue to have and use for the rest of their lives, instead of something that they will forget right after writing an exam. And last but not the least, we need to trust students. We need to give them the agency to learn, to grow, to explore. Because the education system shouldn't be about creating workers. It should be about creating young leaders, the future of tomorrow. And here is another thing. Albert Einstein's fish didn't need to learn how to climb a tree. It needed to learn, and it needed to be seen for what it was, a brilliant swimmer. And here's another truth. All of us sitting in this room today, we are the future of tomorrow. We don't need to wait for the change to happen in the system. We can drive the change. Because the future isn't what happens to us, the future is what we create. Thank you so much, everyone.